Have you ever wondered about the quiet heroes of history? The ones whose stories aren't sung in epic poems, but are whispered in the halls of time, carried on the winds of change they created. Today, I want to share one such story with you. It's a tale that might not be as famous as David and Goliath or Moses parting the Red Sea. But it's one of the most powerful displays of love, grief, and unwavering resolve you'll ever hear. This is the story of Rizpah, a mother whose silent protest shook a kingdom. To understand Rizpah's story, we have to go back to a difficult time in ancient Israel, during the reign of King David. A terrible famine had gripped the land for 3 long years. The crops failed, the livestock perished, and the people were starving. King David, a man of faith, sought an answer from God. Why was this happening? The answer he received was unsettling. The famine was a consequence of a broken promise, a violent act committed by his predecessor, King Saul, years before. Saul had, in a brutal act of political violence, massacred the Gibeonites, a neighboring people who had a long-standing treaty of peace with Israel. A covenant made generations earlier in the time of Joshua. This treaty was a sacred vow, and Saul had shattered it. Now, years later, the land was paying the price. David, understanding that justice had to be served to restore balance and end the famine, went to the surviving Gibeonites. He asked them, "What can I do for you? How can I make amends so that you will bless the Lord's inheritance?" Their response was chilling. They didn't want money or land. They wanted justice, an eye for an eye, as was the custom of the time. They asked for 7 of Saul's male descendants to be handed over to them to be executed. It was a harsh demand, born from generations of pain. King David, caught between a rock and a hard place, wanting to end the suffering of his people, agreed. This is where Rizpah enters our story. She had been a concubine to King Saul, a secondary wife. 2 of the 7 men chosen to pay for Saul's crime were her own sons, Armoni and Mephibosheth. The other 5 were grandsons of Saul, sons of his daughter, Merab. Imagine the horror of that moment. Her sons, innocent of their grandfather's crimes, were to be sacrificed for a political sin they didn't commit. They were taken to a place called Gibeah and executed. Their bodies were not given a proper burial, which was considered the ultimate dishonor in their culture. Instead, they were left exposed on the side of a hill, a grim spectacle for all to see. This is where most stories would end. A tragedy, a footnote in the political maneuverings of kings. But not this story. Because this is where Rizpah's love transformed into a revolutionary act. She was a woman, in a patriarchal society, with no power, no voice, no status. She had lost everything. But she had her grief, and she had her love for her sons. And she would use them as her weapons and her shields. As the bodies of her sons and the 5 other men lay exposed on the hill, Rizpah did something extraordinary. She went to that hill of death. She took sackcloth, the traditional garment of mourning, and spread it out for herself on a rock. And there, she began her vigil. From the beginning of the barley harvest in the spring until the autumn rains began to fall, Rizpah stayed. That's nearly 6 months. Think about that for a moment. 6 months. Through the scorching heat of the day, she was there. She was a solitary guardian, a silent protector. The Bible tells us, she did not allow the birds of the air to touch them by day, nor the beasts of the field by night. Can you picture it? This lone woman, armed with nothing but her determination, chasing away vultures and jackals. Day after day, night after night. Her life became a relentless cycle of grief and protection. She wasn't screaming for justice. She wasn't leading a protest march. Her protest was silent, but it was deafening. Every person who passed by that hill saw her. Every traveler, every farmer, every soldier. They saw this mother, cloaked in sackcloth and sorrow, refusing to abandon her dead. Her silent presence was a powerful indictment of the injustice that had been done. It was a living, breathing testament to a mother's unbreakable love. She was saying, without uttering a single word, these were not just political pawns. They were not just numbers in a transaction for justice. They were my sons. They were human beings. They deserved dignity in life and in death. Her vigil was an act of profound courage. She faced the elements, the wild animals, the loneliness, and the crushing weight of her own sorrow. She could have been attacked. She could have been driven away. But she stayed. Her quiet strength was more powerful than any army. It was a moral force that could not be ignored. And it wasn't ignored. Word of Rizpah's vigil eventually reached the ears of King David in his palace in Jerusalem. Someone told him, "This is what Rizpah, Saul's concubine, is doing." And when David heard, he was moved. Perhaps he saw in her actions a reflection of his own past griefs, his own complex relationship with Saul's family. Perhaps her unwavering love reminded him of what it truly means to be human. Her silent protest had succeeded. It had pierced the heart of the king. David, convicted by Rizpah's actions, finally understood that the justice of men was incomplete without the compassion of God. It wasn't enough to just execute the sons. The dead needed to be honored. He gave an order. He commanded that the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan, who had died in battle years before, be recovered from the city where they were being held. Then, he ordered that the bodies of Rizpah's sons and the other 5 men be taken down from that hill of shame. And for the first time, they were all given a proper, honorable burial. They were laid to rest in the tomb of Kish, Saul's father. Justice was finally tempered with mercy. The cycle of violence and dishonor was broken. And the Bible tells us that after this was done, God answered the prayer for the land. The famine ended. The rains came. Healing began. All because of one mother's love. Rizpah's story is so compelling because it shows us that you don't need a crown, or an army, or a loud voice to change the world. Sometimes, the most powerful force for change is the quiet, persistent, unwavering love of a single person who refuses to accept injustice. She took her personal, private grief and turned it into a public statement that rocked a nation and moved a king. She fought for the dignity of her children, even after their deaths. Her vigil wasn't just about her sons. It was a stand for the value of every human life. It was a declaration that everyone, regardless of their station or their family, deserves to be treated with honor and respect, both in life and in death. In a world full of noise, shouting, and conflict, Rizpah's silent strength is a lesson for all of us. It reminds us that true power doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it sits quietly on a rock, in the dust of grief, and simply endures. Rizpah's name means hot stone or ember, which is so fitting. From the ashes of her life, from the smoldering embers of her grief, she ignited a fire of compassion that warmed a cold and unforgiving world. She didn't get her sons back. The tragedy remained. But she reclaimed their honor. She ensured they would be remembered not as criminals, but as beloved sons. And in doing so, she carved her own name into history. It's a story that speaks directly to us today. We all face moments when we feel powerless, when we witness injustice and feel like our voice is too small to make a difference. Rizpah's story teaches us that acts of love, however small they may seem, have a ripple effect. A silent vigil, a helping hand, a refusal to look away from suffering, these things have power. They can change hearts. They can change history. So the next time you hear the great stories of kings and warriors, remember Rizpah. Remember the mother on the hill. Remember that true strength is not the absence of pain, but what we choose to do with it. Her legacy is a timeless reminder that in the face of unspeakable loss, love endures. And sometimes, a mother's love is the most powerful force in the universe. Thank you so much for joining me today to explore this incredible story. If it touched you, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Rizpah's legacy. And if you enjoy deep dives into these powerful, often overlooked stories, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.